with wear in the retainer. This one came apart pretty easily there, and I'll actually look into the taper, like the bore of the retainer, and this one's titanium, and I can still see some of the machine marks there, so I know that we don't have any like wear issues in that area. And I'll also look at the outside of the keepers, and these look good as well. It looks like the main issue that we had was not the retainer, and that's where the this wear is happening on the top of the retainer. So we'll have to replace the retainers, and we'll clearance the rockers a little bit. But as far as the build goes, on the keeper and everything, that's fine. Another thing I'll look at, on the valve, I'll look at a couple areas. I'll look at the stem and see if it looks like it's wearing normal. And then I'll also look at the seat to see if there's a pretty consistent sealing area, and that there's not like high spots or low spots or any kind of like pock marks or like dark areas where it might not actually be touching. Those are signs that you either some dirt went through there or that your valve's bent a little bit. This one I pulled out looks pretty good, but we'll have to go through all of them. So this crankshaft is actually a modified factory Toyota one. We use the factory main journals, but then the rod journals are turned down and widened a little bit so we can run a 2-inch pin Chevy rod bearing. The rod bearings did look pretty beat up. I think that at some point maybe it ran a little bit low on oil, starving for oil, like maybe on the bank of the track, or some probably really high oil temperatures. So we can see a little bit of heat on the crank. So the crank will go back to our crankshaft guy Castillo, who did the modifications, and he'll check it, make sure it's within spec, and make sure it's not bent at all. If it is, they can actually bend it back. And then he'll polish up the journals and make sure that they're shiny within spec and ready to be reassembled. So this is the piston and rod we use. It's a JE forged piston, basically custom to our spec. We run a pretty standard ring pack. It's a 2.8, 2.8, 4.0. That's the thickness of the rings. And then we run a 200 thou thick pin. It's actually a really buff pin. Because of the power that we make, it's like close to 250 horsepower per cylinder. We've actually bent thinner pins. So this is something we run so it's really robust. And then a custom rod. The rod bearings are actually ACL bearings that Calico modifies for us, because typically these are for a small block Chevy where they have like the sistered rods, so they're only chamfered on one side. They chamfer the other side and narrow it for our application. What I'm going to look for as I inspect this piston rod bearing combo is I'll look at the top of the piston to make sure, see if there's any kind of detonation or any kind of maybe part came through here. In addition to that, I'll sort of spin the rings and see if they spin properly and make sure that none of the ring lands have crushed down, or make sure that's all good. And I'll also look really close at where the ring gap is and see if there's any signs of budding. The budding is basically if you didn't have your piston ring end gap big enough and everything heated up and they touched each other, which is really bad. So that's how we do a teardown and inspection here at Papadakis Racing. We believe if you want to be a championship level team, this is something you need to do a few times a year.
So Dave came back to me a few weeks later and said, hey, my car is not fixed. I'm having to build a whole nother one. It's
As somebody who stays up super late, I made a comment about find the video. It is a turbocharged four-rotor. In South Africa, they use a different unit of power. They use
You might use a VPN for any number of reasons, from accessing region-blocked content to logging into your school's library from off campus to obfuscating your IP address when you're legally downloading backups of your movies and games. But did you know that a VPN can be used to potentially save thousands of dollars on your next airplane ticket? We are gonna show you guys how, in just a few seconds, you can completely stymie the airline's algorithms and get the best possible price for your next trip. Oh, and by the way, it works for hotel and car rentals too. Now, full disclosure, this works with just about any VPN of your choosing, but we will be using Private Internet Access VPN, one of our sponsors here on the show, so if you like what you see, you can check them out at the link in the video description. To demonstrate how airlines and flight booking services show different search results depending on who you are and where you're from, we're gonna do a test where we book a flight from London to Denver and see if we get different prices. So the first thing we're gonna do is our regular old search as if we live in London. So if I type "show my location" into Google, it's telling me I'm in London. Now if I go to the Expedia UK site and book a flight from LHR to DEN for September 11th to 15th and choose business class, the cheapest result I get is a direct flight from Iberia Airlines for £5,935. That's over $7,500 US. Pretty steep. Okay, so now let's see if we can get a better price. The first thing that you need to do is clear the cookies from your browser. Remember that cookies are messages that web servers pass to your browser as you surf the internet, creating a record of your activity online. Travel sites use cookies to help them drive ticket sales. So if you search for a flight, but then you leave without buying, the cookies will tell them that, and then the next time you search for that flight, they might increase the price that you see by maybe a small amount, $10 or $20. At that point, human psychology compels you to buy the ticket right now out of fear that the price will continue to go up. Fortunately, you can get browser extensions that help you delete cookies as you go. We're using Auto Cookie Delete, which clears all the cookies generated by a tab as soon as you close it, or it can dump them automatically as you browse. Cool. Next, we're gonna use our VPN to make it look like we're browsing from somewhere else. Now, there are differing theories as to what the best location to book flights from is. I've heard that booking from the US always gets the best deal. I've heard that booking from a less affluent place, like the Midwest instead of the coast, or a less affluent country, like India instead of Germany, is the way to go. And then there are those who swear that booking from the destination country is the best, or even that it's the local currency of the airline itself that matters. Naturally, the only way to test these theories is to run your own experiments. And this is where your choice of VPN makes a difference, because you want a VPN that has servers in lots